Hey friends, it's me, Em again, and welcome back to my channel where we talk about all things sinister. If you are interested in true crime, or if you like all things horror related, make sure you hit that like and subscribe button. That way you can join me for some morbid conversation. And today's story is a little bit spicy. We have a swingers club with some swingers. We have a love triangle, and the person that you first suspect is the murderer probably isn't. It's honestly probably one of the more interesting ones that I have stumbled across, and because of that, we're going to get into it. So let's go to Fayetteville, North Carolina for today's story, where on July 23rd, 2002, Joan Shannon had called 911 around 3:30 in the morning. And when she had called 911, she was on the phone, she was distressed, she was requesting an ambulance because she said that an intruder had broken in and shot her husband, David, and she thought that he might be dead. So David and Joan's two sons were asleep in their bedroom at the time, and one of Joan's daughters was awake because she had a friend staying the night that night, and the two of them had stayed up listening to music. David and Joan had married in 1991, and David was an Army major who worked as a computer specialist. When the two married, David would adopt Joan's two daughters from her previous marriage, and they would end up having two sons together as well. The family would move regularly given the nature of David's job, and in the year 2000, the family moved to Fort Bragg, which is where they were located the night that this 911 call took place. So the Shannons were actually very far from vanilla when it came to their sex life. The two of them participated in swinging and were even members of the Fayetteville Gangbangers Club, which was a club for swingers. Now, in case you don't know what swingers are couples who engage in partner swaps with other couples for sexual activities. So one wife will switch roles of another wife, and the husbands will, you see what I'm saying? Like partner swap for sex. And Joan and David participated in this frequently. Not only did they do partner swaps, but they would also do like group sex activities, threesomes, and they documented all of this with pictures and videos and homemade pornographic material. In fact, when the police would end up investigating the home after David's shooting, they would find all of this material underneath the bed, homemade pictures, homemade videos, and then also on the couple's computer, there was more digital copies of the pictures and the video. And like, honestly, I don't care. Whatever it is, you do you, don't yuck anybody else's yum. I don't care what consenting adults do in the bedroom. Consenting adults, right? I don't care. The only reason why I bring this up is because it does pertain to this case, because in these pictures and in these videos, one man kept reoccurring. And that man was a man named Jeffrey Wilson. And his face was all over these pictures and all over these videos, which led police to bringing him in for questioning. So the Shannons originally met Jeffrey through an online chat room, and they would end up inviting him to their events that they would go to, their sexual events with the swingers club and with their get-togethers. And he actually became a pretty regular occurrence in their sex life, as noted by all the pictures and the videos that he was in. So the relationship between Joan and Wilson would actually end up growing beyond just what they did at the swingers club and at their little sex meetings that they would have. Joan and Wilson would actually end up hooking up outside of these meetings, and they would hook up like one-on-one. And Joan would develop feelings for Wilson. She even told him at one point that she loved him. And Wilson fed into this. You know, he reciprocated her feelings. He told her what she wanted to hear in these situations. It got to the point where David, Joan's husband, was bothered by this, because this is towing the line of now he's not consenting to this. It's one thing to participate in sexual activity where your partner consents to your sexual activity. And what I mean by that is if your partner is okay with partner swapping and is actively, giving the go ahead for that, that's one thing. But Joan was meeting up with Wilson outside of David and outside of his knowledge. So this bothered David. I mean, it obviously bothered David because this is not something that he is consenting to. And so it ultimately led into a confrontation from David to Joan, where he had asked the relationship to stop and he asked for Joan to cut all ties with Wilson, which, I mean, Joan is falling hard for Wilson. So being asked to stop seeing him obviously did not go over well with her. So all of this would come up during the police interrogation of Wilson. And furthermore, in this interrogation, Wilson would say that yeah, Joan was definitely into him and definitely having some strong feelings for him, but that relationship was one-sided. He fed into it, but he told the police the only reason why he fed into it was because he was hoping to get Joan to the point where she would co-sign for a motorcycle for him. So like he didn't have romantic feelings toward her, but he kind of led her on in hopes of getting something out of her, which is shitty of him. I mean, that's pretty shitty of him, but that's what he says why their relationship went the way that it did. It wasn't that he had feelings for her, she had feelings for him, and he was hoping to take advantage of those feelings to get a motorcycle out of the deal. So now eyes are turning to Joan as the number one suspect in this case, and that's for multiple reasons. One, when police and paramedics arrived there at that day, Joan didn't appear as distressed outside of the home as she did on the phone call. She seemed to be calmed down from the whole ordeal. Two, she had told investigators that she was in bed next to David when he got shot, but when they arrived on the scene, she had no blood on her, which is pretty suspicious. But then three, you have this whole story about her developing feelings for Wilson and about her wanting to pursue something with Wilson and David confronting her about it. So that kind of adds to it of, yeah, she seems pretty suspicious. So police would end up testing Joan for gunshot residue, and they would also test the two girls that were there and awake the night that the shooting occurred. Joan's daughter and Joan's daughter's friend who was staying the night. Now, the two girls, they did not test positively for gunshot residue. Joan did test positively for gunshot residue, but the pattern of residue that was left on her was inconsistent with being the shooter. In essence, it proved that she wasn't the one who shot the gun. So despite the fact that she was pretty dang suspicious, the testing seemed to rule her out. So the case would finally get its big break when they would invite the girl who was staying the night there, her name was Vera, to the police station to answer more questions. And when Vera went to the police station to answer more questions, despite the fact that they were not able to get anything out of her the day that it happened, they were able to get a whole lot out of her at this later time. And what they got out of her was that Joan had gone into her friend's room that day, Elizabeth, Joan's daughter, and Joan had told Elizabeth that she needed to shoot her stepdad. And she had told her, after you shoot him, make sure you get rid of the gun. She helped her put on multiple thick layers of sweatsuit, I assume, to protect against any kind of blood splatter or gunshot residue, which obviously it worked because Elizabeth had no gunshot residue on her. She wore gloves. She wore a full suit. And that's exactly what happened, according to Vera. Elizabeth went into her stepdad's room. She shot him once in the chest. That did not kill him. She shot him again in the head. So once police got this information from Vera, they would end up arresting Joan on July 30th, 2002. But they were unable to find her daughter, Elizabeth. And they would look for Elizabeth, and after a couple days, they would end up finding her camping out, hiding out at a friend's trailer and they would actually find her hiding under the bed. But she was arrested just a few days after Joan was. When she was arrested, Elizabeth would corroborate Vera's story, admitting that she had killed her stepfather and it was done so under the manipulation of her mother. Elizabeth would agree to plead guilty to second-degree murder and to testify against her mother, and in doing so would only be sentenced to 31 years and 5 months in prison. She will be eligible for release in 2029. So it was speculated that Joan's motivation was that she wanted to kill David in order to get his life insurance policy, which was about $700,000. And so that way she could use that money to start a new life with Jeffrey Wilson, which, if any of that's true, that is so dumb on her part. Because, like, one, I mean, it's obviously dumb to kill anybody. But, like, this dude didn't even have feelings for her. He just wanted to get a motorcycle out of the deal. So she, if this is true, she killed somebody to go after somebody who was just trying to get a motorcycle off of her, which is so horrible and so unfortunate that a man lost his life over something like that. I mean, that's pretty unfortunate. Joan's trial for murder would start on August 15th of 2005, and when Elizabeth testified against her mother, she said that first her mother asked for her help to hire a hitman to take out David. When she was unsuccessful at hiring a hitman, Joan would begin her manipulation into convincing Elizabeth to carry out the task herself. The jury found Joan guilty of first-degree murder, conspiracy to commit first-degree murder, and accessory after the fact to murder. She was sentenced to life in prison without parole. So a surprising twist to the story, in my opinion, is that David's family stood beside Joan the whole time, even after getting a guilty verdict. And they stood behind Joan and they thought Elizabeth acted 100% alone by herself, no manipulation from her mom. They said that Elizabeth was an evil child from the very beginning and that Joan would never do that to David, that her and David were soulmates and that they were meant to be together forever. So that just blows my mind. She's found guilty of murdering this man, and in the eyes of the law, she essentially planned his murder, but his family is on her side, which is crazy to me. Honestly, I really do believe that there is too much evidence against Joan for her not to be the one who actively planned this murder. To me, it seems like she was the one who planned it out. I mean, you've got the fact that she had no blood on her that night. You have a pretty good motive where she was catching feelings for this Wilson guy. You have Vera and Elizabeth giving the same story about Joan coming into Elizabeth's bedroom and how they were going to stage the murder, how they were going to plan the murder. It just seems like there are too many things. And the fact that Joan was sitting next to her or sleeping next to her husband when he was shot twice, shot once in the chest, shot once in the head. And the fact that she didn't recognize the person shooting him. She didn't recognize that it was her daughter there. She didn't react in a way where, I don't know, if from my understanding, 3 of her 4 children are there in the home and this person obviously has a gun. If she didn't know it was her daughter at the time and she thought it was an intruder, you mean to tell me that a mama's not going to try to protect her children and see what's going on, fight this person off, and then find out that it's actually Elizabeth? It just seems all too hairy to me. It seems too far-fetched to think that she wasn't involved. But I'd love to hear what you think. What do you think about this case? Do you think Joan's innocent and she's sitting behind bars for no reason? Or do you think she was involved in the planning and the conspiracy to commit murder of her husband? Is this a love triangle gone wrong? Let me know what you think. And until next time, like I always say, friends, take care, stay safe, and I'll talk to you later, all right?